Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. It's good to be back. But what about the disappearing acts? That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, what we saw over the weekend was an utter collapse of whatever shred of credibility the Biden administration had remaining. Now, they dug deeper on two blatant lies. First, the so-called bipartisan negotiations on the very border crisis that the White House itself precipitated. Now, after Mayorkas and Biden have already greenlit, what is it, like really 12 million migrants into the United States already? They think that they can force Republicans to agree to a bad deal or get the public to blame them if they don't. What frauds? I'm going to dip into that in a minute. But the second lie involves the defense secretary's disappearing act.
The president respects the fact that Secretary Austin took ownership for the lack of transparency. He also respects the amazing job he's done as defense secretary and how he's handled multiple crises over the last almost 3 years now, and very much values his advice, candor, leadership.
Oh, is that right? Look, we're running a television show, not the Pentagon, but if anyone on my senior staff was missing for 4 days, we'd all know about it within what? Maybe 12 hours? Now, why? Because, first of all, we care about each other, and also because we're in near constant communication, and because each staffer is really important to our daily production. But Lloyd Austin is the Secretary of Defense, the top official in a 2.8 million person department. He disappears for 4 days, and no one even notices it? Now, the headlines on this story mainly focus on the fact that the Pentagon didn't inform people. But I think more significant is that no one seemed to notice him gone. Not the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, not the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, not senior White House personnel, and not the President of the United States. Well, of course, he was busy getting sunburned in the Caribbean. But imagine disappearing from your office and the people you deal with on a daily basis don't even notice for days. So the only conclusion here is that Austin isn't in regular communication with any of these people. Let's call him the invisible general. Well, I can tell you who did notice that our DOD chief was gone. Putin and Xi. How embarrassing. Because we know they track every step, every stumble of Biden and his team. This isn't how a real superpower behaves. And a real president wouldn't react to such a dereliction of duty this way either. But Biden's standing by his man. A White House official confirming to Fox that President Biden is not considering firing Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, and that the president would not accept a resignation of Austin if he were to offer one. But this doesn't mean that they aren't taking the matter really seriously, people.
We'll take a look at process and procedure here and try to learn from this experience, and if there's some changes that need to be made in terms of process and procedure, we'll do that.
Okay, process and procedure. We should get T-shirts made. I'm process and your procedure. Now, this is what the Angle has told you all along. These officials are asleep at the wheel, but the taxpayers are on the hook for record spending that we can't afford and we can't apparently account for. We can't even account for the head of the DOD. And where the Pentagon's concerned, the sky is the limit. After all, we have so many military wins, right? We can't count them. Is that $886 billion now they're getting? But the ultimate insult here is that Senate Republicans, they don't seem to care that the Pentagon is rudderless and leaderless at a time when, according to the administration itself, the world is more dangerous than ever.
The reality is that the terrorism threat has been elevated throughout 2023, but the ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans in the United States to a whole nother level.
And if that's not bad enough, we just learned that Iran, predictably, has ramped up its nuclear program after Biden dropped the sanctions. Good job. And with Russia and China now rallying to Iran's side. Yet, as all this is happening, our top military official is considered so insignificant that his colleagues are unfazed by his absence. Now, when I worked in the White House a long time ago, the SecDef was in a daily call with all the principals. But I don't know, I guess everything's going so well for us, they can just blow that all off. Now, remember, the Biden folks thought hiring firsts was more important than hiring excellence. They have a vice president who can't really be trusted with pretty much anything, not even campaigning. She's an embarrassment. They have a press secretary who essentially has to step aside for John Kirby when the really hard issues come up. It's so obvious that even KJP is grousing about it in reports in the media. And now everyone understands that we have a Secretary of Defense who's just a figurehead. I guess kind of like the president himself, right? And meanwhile, the border crisis erupting. The president of Mexico is demanding various concessions, we learn, from us on the issue of immigration. Translation, he's blackmailing us. Now, this is absurd. The president of the United States has enormous leverage over the president of Mexico. President Trump, after all, he showed everyone how to exercise leverage by threatening new tariffs on Mexico if it didn't start helping on the border. And for 25 years, I've been writing and speaking about the fact that the elites want open borders. This is their policy. Most of them hate America, and they want America to fundamentally change without any input from the voters at all. Their political existence is bought and paid for by people who want to drive down wages and keep the haves in the money and the have-nots without it. Any border deal that has the support of McConnell and Schumer will be rejected by the Republican voters, period. Where were any of them, by the way, any of these top officials 3 years ago when the migrants were lining up at the border to rush in right before Biden was inaugurated? Where was Mitch McConnell? And any, frankly, in the Senate leadership, when the Biden administration was making a laughingstock out of all of us on the issue of the border. So anything drafted by some Chamber of Commerce flunky on immigration is meaningless. Mayorkas will simply take the money and use it to settle migrants in the United States more quickly, more efficiently. Isn't that great? So Republicans should get out of these ridiculous negotiations. We invited Senator Lankford onto the show tonight. He's reportedly leading these talks, but he could not join us. He did say, though, that once the full text is out, he's going to come here and answer all of our questions. I look forward to that interview. Look, this is nothing personal toward him or, frankly, anyone. This is an issue of our country and its preservation. But we strongly recommend that Lankford refuse to be the face of this. Ask Marco Rubio how that worked out for him. What was that, back in 2013? Imagine this audience, the audience reaction in a town hall in Oklahoma City. Remember, Lankford's a senator from Oklahoma. Let's say he convenes a town hall in Oklahoma City to sell a border deal that would have to be enforced by Secretary Mayorkas. What do you think the reaction of that crowd would be in Oklahoma? We all know what it would be. It would be boos. They would say, no way, no how, don't do it. So this is a hot potato that McConnell has tossed to Lankford and that he should toss it right back. Let McConnell negotiate it. Think of it this way. Why on earth, after the Democrats did everything in their power to flood America with millions of indigents from across the globe, would Republicans ever give Biden an opportunity to take a victory lap and then pretend that he's done anything to solve this problem? And by the way, if House Republicans do the smart thing and say no to this raw deal, the Speaker shouldn't even consider it. He should say out of hand he's rejecting it. The Biden campaign is going to hit the airwaves with the message, you probably already made the commercials, see, the border's their fault. Bottom line, you can't make a deal with someone who has no intention of fulfilling the terms of the deal. I told you that at the end of 2023 that we're winning. And these two Biden moves, they're covering for an incompetent and insubordinate cabinet official, and they're conniving to pin the blame on conservatives for their border. These are desperate measures for desperate people. And that's the angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.